You got to build relationships with coaches. You want coaches to trust you. You can't just expect them to give you stuff.
They want to sign guys they have a relationship with. They want to have guys that they walked in that they've seen.
Coaches don't like getting a mass templated email that just says, here's my class, my position.
And it's the same thing with some of the DMs I get. If it's truly somebody that I'm actively recruiting, yes, now let's build that relationship. But if I get hundreds of those and it just clogs my email box, it's just white noise to me. It puts me to sleep.
You're listening to the Football Scholarship Podcast, the playbook for parents and athletes who want to secure the best football scholarships possible. From securing a D1 football scholarship in the SEC at Ole Miss at just £5,700, myself, to helping 83% of the athletes I mentor achieve football scholarship offers and 42% going Division I. I've learned countless lessons that I'll be sharing right here with you. Join me and my co-host Brian Overton, who has 15 years of D1 college football recruiting experience, as we interview top experts, successful athletes, and discuss current recruiting trends. Together, we'll help you navigate the recruiting process so you too can achieve your dream of running out of that tunnel in front of 100,000 screaming fans. So really excited, guys. Today's guest is a veteran coach, to say the least, Mark Rhea, the assistant head coach and co-defensive coordinator at Portland State, a 4-year starter at the University of Toledo. He played under coaching legends Gary Pinkel and the man, the myth. He is the legend, Nick Saban. Later joining Saban's staff as a graduate assistant at Michigan State. Over his 30-year career, Coach Rhea has recruited and developed NFL standouts like Jared Allen and Julian Edelman, and continues to mentor elite defensive talent at the college level. Mark Rhea, man, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I just want to jump right into it. All of our listeners, they're parents of high school football players and high school football players that want to play at the next level. Let's talk about Julian Edelman for a second, because, you know, nobody believed in this kid coming out, right? Walk me through how you recruited him. What was that like? What did he do to get your attention and to ultimately get an offer from you?
So, and as I was kind of mentioning, before we went on air, was that it's a great story about Julian, and I think he actually mentions it in one of his books. But Julian, out of high school, I recruited Northern California, so I recruited Julian. I saw him at his high school, and I thought he was a heck of a talent at quarterback. And I was coaching at Idaho State at the time,
Okay.
and so I recruited him. I brought him in, just like our normal recruiting, recruiting protocol is. I brought him in. I brought him to the quarterback coach, and the quarterback coach, and he brought it up to the offensive staff. And I heard, no, this kid doesn't fit what we do, and it's true. In recruiting, there's a fit for everybody. I mean, even Julian Edelman. So he got nixed off my board. And so going through, Julian didn't have any per se scholarship offers that were entertaining to him. So Julian went to San Mateo Junior College.
Okay.
And so I'm knowing that Julian is a qualifier out of high school, and he goes to this junior college. So recruiting winds up the following year, and it's, hey, we need to get our quarterbacks on the board, the guys like. And I stood on the table again for Julian, and I heard the same thing. He doesn't fit our style of offense. He's not a kid that we want to recruit. And I'm like, this kid's phenomenal. And about that time, Doug Martin from Kent State University calls me up and offers me a job to go coach defensive line there. So this is my first day there. Doug Martin says, hey, we need a quarterback. And I was like, I got a guy. And I said, he's out of a junior college in Northern California. He's like, watch this film. He's like, I love him. Go get him. So I go recruit Julian Edelman. We bring him in on the official visit. Have the starting quarterback at the time take him around. One of the first things Julian told him, and hearsay or whatever you want to say, I don't know the direct quote, but it was kind of to this extent of, you're going to be my backup, because Julian was very confident in what he was going to do. And we offered him. Julian accepted. The roundabout story that Julian probably doesn't know or end up is about the end of spring ball. Julian wasn't on campus yet, and it was during that time that he couldn't sign a letter of commitment. I got offered a job at University of Toledo to coach defensive line, returning MAC champions, and I obviously played there, so I was an alum.
Yeah.
And so Doug Martin came in and said, I can't turn this down. You can go there. Well, Julian and I talked after that. Julian goes, well, I would love to be with you at Toledo. So I brought him up to the coach at Toledo, the offense coordinator at the time. He's like, I can't wait to play against this guy. He's not what we want. He's not the style. So I'm the only coach that got Julian rejected 3 times. Julian beat
Dang.
our butt every single time we played it, and he gave me some looks from the sideline. As they're running out the clock, Julian's looking over at me and is like, "You're just such a dumbass." And I'm just like,
Didn't do it.
It's not me,
Yeah, it's not you. You
but
did your best. You know what? This
I
is
did my best.
And it's like, look, you hit like you were I have to say at Kent State, you were the man for finding him. No, were they like, wow, look,
Yeah, they especially Doug Martin and the coaching staff. Every time they beat our butts, they'd walk across the field and say thank you for bringing Julian over here. But I think it extended their coaches from that staff still say thanks because it extended their coaching tenure at that for another 3-4 years.
right?
So
No,
and that was all because of Julian. It wasn't a thing that I did. I
you.
was
What do you
just
mean? You found him though. You found him.
well, I found him and brought him along,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I like to tell that story just because there's a lot of guys that in recruiting, it's not a fit everywhere.
Right, right,
It's
right, right.
like getting married and everything else. It's got to be mutual on both ends, and Julian was just that special, talent level. So I just say I found him. They did the rest with getting him once I left left
Yeah,
campus, and
yeah.
he showed up, and they developed him and did the whole night, and then beat our butts every year. So it was fun.
I have to say though, like, and this kind of like made me think, right? Because I always try to explain to parents and athletes, I want you to think from the coach's perspective, right? Like for coaches, a lot of, I don't know, we'll talk about Portland State, but in general, they're recruiting a specific area, right? And if a guy slips through the cracks, that's kind of on the coach, right? And on the other side, if the coach finds a diamond in the rough and brings it to the school, then that coach is like the hero, right? So
Yeah.
I always tell parents like, you guys, if you get your son properly evaluated, and in this case, let's say FCS, we'll say Portland State, you're grading
Mhm.
as an FCS player, you're legitimately at that level. You're doing coaches a favor by finding who's responsible for recruiting your specific area and getting your film in front of those coaches, because now that coach has an opportunity to be like, I found the guy, right? So I always
Yeah.
try to say,
Yeah.
think from the coach's perspective. So does that make sense? Does that help?
Oh, 100%. And I've been recruiting coordinator, at several places, and I know I think you started out mentioning I was co-DC last year, and then I got promoted up to associate or assistant head coach,
Assistant
and
head
and
coach, yeah.
and now I'm defensive. So I've taken over a little bit different role, but I've been recruiting coordinator. I still am here, several different places, and kind of the thing that I find as a recruiting coordinator is one, we always start out everywhere we've been is we have coaches assigned to different areas, and everybody has, I try to do it by counties, and I try to keep guys centrally located, and you got to kind of know your coaches on where they're going to thrive. And when I was at Western Carolina, the biggest thing was I would always adjust and adapt when we get a new coach on our staff and put them in the area they're from or whatnot. They have
Yeah.
connections. But that's phase one. And I think phase one is, and we can get into, recruiting services. We pay for these recruiting services, and they get all the recruits from their area, and they get the write-ups that the recruiting guy did, and they evaluate those. And then they're going to go out, in the spring and see those guys. And then they're going to send those to the position coaches. After that point, it goes defense coordinator, head coach, the recruiting coordinator, head coach
Yep.
to okay everything, and that's the system. I found a lot of places where I've had, and I've done studies on it, and O line coaches like to recruit guys that they have a connection with, and they like to recruit O linemen. And I sit there and look at it, and I'm like, all the offensive guys are signed by offensive coaches. So I've kind of taken a little different approach, and we get as quickly, I know the bigger schools do as much. We try to get it as soon as spring recruiting's over. We try to put it into the position coach's hands. And
Okay.
it's, more, it's these are your recruits now. So don't have any favorites of this kid's from this area, this kid's from that. These are the defensive linemen. I'm going to go through and I'm going to recruit those guys now.
Okay.
And I'm going to rank those guys and get them going, because guys they want to sign guys they have a relationship with. They want to have guys that they've walked and they've seen. So we kind of try to mimic a little bit of the BCS of let's go as quickly as possible into the position coaching recruiting. But it all starts in an area, and if that kid doesn't get recommended early from the area coach, then that O-line, D-line coach, whoever, wide receiver coach, it's harder to find those guys, I would say.
Yeah. So it starts with the area code. You said something key there, Mark. I want to just emphasize.
Oh boy.
Have a relationship with.
Yes.
Right? Guys, this isn't coaches are selling players. Players are trying to sell coaches. But guys, you don't just pick up the phone and ask for an offer. You got to build, you got to get to know the coaches. You got to get to know what these coaches are looking for. Just like you guys are trying to find, like, hey, these are the players we're recruiting. I want to know what's important to this player, right? What's important to this player? I want to build a relationship with this player, and maybe he's the right fit. It's the same thing for players with coaches. You got to build relationships with coaches. You want coaches to trust you? You got to build a relationship with them. You can't just expect them to give you stuff, right? I mean, unless you're a 5-star kid or a 4. I mean, let's just, you know what I mean? Like, relationships are key. So, Mark, you said that, they want a relationship. So when a player comes to you and let's say, they're a solid FCS level player, maybe even a little higher or somewhere in that range, what works for you? Like if a player approaches you, what really works for you in that, and that player building a relationship with you?
It's different. I keep equating it to, just any relationship with anybody. Be it friends, be it, any new, work environment anywhere, it's building that trust. And I think part of that building that trust, it's got to be mutual. It's got to be what we're needing, and what they're needing. And, but, talking is obviously, kids nowadays, they don't want to talk. They just want to, text message, which is fine, or DM, and that's fine as well. But it's a chemistry. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. But okay. So go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, so you brought up a good point. Like these kids are texting. So if you have 2 kids, Mark, same level talent, could be great players at Portland State, but one of the players texts you and is like, hey, Mark, let's jump on a call. I want to get to know you and I want to get to know your program. And the other player's like, just short texts here and there. Which player are you going to be more interested in spending time?
The one I talk to more. I mean, it's the same thing. The one I talk to more. I agree 100%. Personality's a little bit of everything, but there's also, I'm going to say it's also on the other side is players that, you wouldn't believe how many emails, text messages, and I can go on. Like I said, I have some bad feelings towards some things. Is the generic, insert coach name here, insert this there, and sometimes the school's wrong, or my name isn't even right, and that's pretty much it's just a mass emails.
Yeah.
Those I get hundreds. I mean, and I'm trying to cut some of those off, but I get hundreds of those, and it just clogs my email box. It's just white noise to me. And it's the same thing with some of the DMs I get, are just white noise. If it's truly somebody that I'm actively recruiting, yes, now let's build that relationship. But if there's a lot that I get out there, and I just can't handle all the white noise. I guess is just it puts me to sleep.
Yeah, if it's like a bunch of mass like, and I'll give, so for the listeners, I'll give them perspective. You guys don't like getting mass camp invites, right? That's obviously not for you. Coaches don't like getting a mass templated email that just says, here's my, you all have seen these. They even post them in the DMs, and it's like, here's my class, my position, it's like, Listen, bro, like if you're interested in going to Portland State, why don't you, number one, make sure you're grading at the FCS level, and then two, look at their system, who are their coaches, what do they like to run, and then if you're gonna send a DM or send an email, personalize it. Say, hey, coach, I've
Oh,
checked out Portland
100%.
State. I'm interested because of this major, because of this program you guys have, because I see the defense you run. You know what I mean? If you get an email
Mhm.
like that and then you watch the film and you're like, this is a kid that could play here, versus an email you open up and it's just height, weight, class, that email. I'm sure you see millions.
I've seen
What's
it.
like,
And that's you hit the nail on the head with the personal part of it. If I'm going across, I've been doing this for a long time. I can see an email and say spam, spam, spam. Oh, this one is actually a personal. Somebody took the time to write me an email. I'm going to take the time to read it. Now, that's just me. Other coaches are different. I'm just like, I can't. But if I see somebody that actually wrote something, I'll probably respond, hey, we're not recruiting, this or that, or I'll take the time. But if it looks like the spam, just general email, it's going to the trash bin. I hate to say it, but I don't have time to respond to 100 emails in a day.
yeah, it's common sense too, man. Like I hate to say it, but
Yeah.
like anybody that's listening to this, you all have email accounts and you all get spam and you all hate it. So don't do it.
Yes.
Like this is like business 101, guys, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
No doubt.
no, but look, you've got an assistant head coach here, Division 1 coach, right? That is saying to you right now, if you're listening, please, if you're gonna reach out to me, make sure get yourself, evaluated. Make sure that this is the appropriate level. And secondly, when you reach out to me, tell me why you want to come here and make it personalized. Because if I'm gonna spend time with you, I want to know why you want to be here, right? Like this is an easy takeaway. So let's talk through this. So let's walk me through a little bit of your recruiting process, right? So you got let's say an area coach. Fine. Well, actually, you did mention something else I want to hit on. You said recruiting services, and I want to be clear on that because a lot of people listening are thinking of the big one that thinks they're NCAA. You think they're a part of NCAA, but they're not NCAA. I mean, you know who I'm talking about. Everyone knows. Um,
No idea. No idea.
okay, yeah. So are you looking through that when you say recruiting services? Are you talking about those Division 1 more recruiting services where they're doing write ups on players and they're the ones out there doing the research on
So
players?
I've had, and everywhere I've been, and like I said, every coach is different. Somebody might utilize that, and there's some, who knows. But for me personally, and for us, is we pay good money for several recruiting services, and the recruiting services means I'm paying somebody. I'm paying different sites. I won't name them out. I mean, it's not sites so much, but they're basically coaches that do what we do, but they don't have the same restraints that we do. So
Right.
they can go out different times. That's a dead period to us. It doesn't matter. They're seeing the high school coaches. They're talking to high school coaches. They have areas. They're giving us height. They're giving us weight. They're giving us their write up on the evals and the tangibles on everything. If that recruiting service that I'm paying for does a horrible job and is telling me this kid's a Division 1 player and he's a Division 3 player, and I've coached at Division 3, and nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy them the next year. So they're reporting to me. Their service for me. I'm
Yeah.
paying for
Yeah.
a service, and they're giving me something in return. The services that, in my opinion, and I don't want to get sued or anything, my opinion, the services that kids are paying for, that service works for the kids. They're trying to get those kids out and they're trying to get them recruited in front of us. It becomes into that white noise for me, because they don't know what we're looking for per se. They're trying to promote these kids that shouldn't be promoted to us. There's several different ones, and I say horror stories. I don't know if I should say the horror story or not. I've had one service which I will not mention, but they tried to get me to open up emails and view kids' video, even if I wasn't interested in it, because it shows on theirs that guys were opening I couldn't understand it. I'm like, what? Why would I open emails so you can get paid more money? and it doesn't make sense to me. And there's a lot of
Crazy, man.
unscrupulous service out there.
It's
And he's
sad
like, well,
because
somebody on your staff would.
If you're the parent of a high school football player who wants to earn a college football scholarship and your son is struggling with marketing himself or confidently communicating with college coaches, I wrote this book specifically for you. Inside it, I share exactly how I earned a Division I football scholarship in the SEC at just 5'7" and 150 pounds, without going to camps, being ranked, and without any connections. And right now, I'd like to give you a copy completely free. All I ask is that you just cover shipping. I'll drop a link in the description below so you can grab your copy before we run out.
Yeah. It's sad, man, because
Hey,
like we one of our team members now was a former over there, and he like just absolutely hated it. And he would say like players would get on with these coaches and then they would say basically like, and I'm not downgrading anybody, but like they were basically, there was no evaluation. It was just like, where do you want to go? Okay, let's start doing outreach. And the kids are like Penn State and da-da-da. It's like,
oh yeah.
I'm sorry, but these schools are not looking at the emails from those software. Like it's not.
Oh, yeah.
So I bring this up not to talk about other services, but to say the difference between what the recruiting services you're thinking of as a parent or a player. Coaches literally can pay basically consultants or can now do the exact same thing coaches can do and go evaluate players without all the different periods and the restrictions. It is not to use a software as a middleman between a coach and a player. That is not what he's referring to. I just want to make all the listeners understand like the type of, once you get to the Division I level and it gets up, there's different services specifically that have for those programs that have budget for that, right? And typically,
They're staying. I
no, no,
didn't
go
mean to
ahead.
cut you off, Richie. They're sanctioned by they have certain rules they have to follow by the NCAA. And like I mentioned, you're exactly right. Most of them. I personally know the recruiter in our region, and most of them are college coaches that have, and I know other servers have college coaches, but they're college coaches, and like I said before, we're paying them for them to evaluate in times that we can't and to get us started. And so we get this massive. We're paying for data or data, however you want to say it. We're paying it. We're
Right.
paying for information, and we put it in our system along with the video, and then our coaches go through and check their rating to what our rating is. And there's a lot of them. We have the numbering system like everybody. We have. I call it. I go in a kind of an opposite direction, but our zeros are guys we spend zero amount of time on because they're national recruits, BCS. We would love to have them. Tell our coaches, put them as a zero if we're not going to get them. And then we go with our ones. They should be our ones on our board. Our twos are obviously the number goes down as we go, and those are kind of the recruiting system we work through as we're going through. Their numbering system's a little bit different, and it may say BCS, it may say one, it may say Division II. We just kind of look at theirs as suggestion. It's kind of trust but verify.
Yeah.
So they give us information. We watch it. We watch their films. Yeah, this kid is, and that's what I'm referring to. Is if they're telling me a lot of kids are FCS players and they're not, then I have an issue with that service because I'm like, you're not giving us the right information. You're not telling us if they're telling me these kids are at this high school, and I go in that high school, and yeah, I know kids transfer, but there's 5 kids that are recruitable kids that they leave off the list, then they're not doing a good job as well. So
Yeah.
it's and I think their job is a little bit tougher. The high school coaches also have to give them information and tell them, that's where it starts with the high school coach giving the information of, I think, these kids are recruitable kids. These kids are a Division I kid. This kid's a Division II kid. And then it's for them to evaluate. That's the first thing. And then they kind of filter the information to us. And the
Yeah.
reason we usually get 2 services is because I want to compare 2 services. I want to see, because they'll miss a kid here and there, and another service will give, a kid here and there.
Right.
So it's, and that's really January stuff, but it all starts with just getting the information. And then we go take it from there and watch the film. And I watched every single kid in my area before I went out. And so I knew which kids I wanted to see, which kids I wanted to talk to, which kids, based off junior film. And then there's kids that I have that I consider them, I call them threes. Threes are senior year evals. So we're a little bit slower than the BCS is pretty much done, with their kids for next year.
Right.
We're trying to get to that point, but there's some kids we have the senior year evals that will go back and check. And then, the thing I kind of get with is everybody, this, we can get into a whole, Richie, you and I could talk forever, but the whole, portal has killed the high school, recruiting, and it's crushed us as well. It's kind of, because we have to find guys to replace guys that leave, and I think we had 9 last year. So our recruiting number, sitting with our head coach talking about our recruiting number, you always, well, it's no longer we have 3 seniors leaving at this position, or we have 2.
Right.
We also have to project that we're going to lose some other guys as well. And then so the recruiting numbers are just crazy. And unfortunately, a lot of that, if you're losing veterans, you're bringing veterans in. Thank goodness the COVID thing's done, because those kids stuck around way too long, like 7 years of having
Right.
those. That killed the high school recruiting.
It really did. It affected.
They didn't give
for
us
sure.
new numbers. They just, here you go, extra years.
But now high school is back, right? I mean, obviously you have the portal, but at least we're not having guys with, year 7 in the game.
Oh,
at
yeah.
that point. So
And we recruit the high schools. That's the one thing we kind of pride ourselves on. And I think that's what the FCS is kind of, right now is, we're getting some high school kids that in years past might have been, above our level, because the portal is just swapping players around. And there's some kids available that to be honest with you, we might not have had a chance to get before.
and they might have been more G5 level grade.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
you said something there, and I think it's really it's powerful. Like, you have your guys that you're looking at, okay, what level grade are they grading this player? And it's like, okay, well, he's a G5 or an FCS level player. And our coach, I don't know if you know Brian Overton, but he's our head coach. He does a lot of our evals for players. He has 15 years of Division I recruiting experience, and so we're really hard on evaluations, and a lot of people, the parents, get mad at us. They're like, "Oh, my kid's D1 and he's like grading as an NAIA or a Division II level," and so I just want you to give some perspective on how good of a player you have to be to grade at the Division I FCS level. Like, we're talking about unreal level talent and above to be. People are like, "Oh, it's D1 FCS." I'm like, you guys, this is like big time. These players are the real deal. So walk us through that, the evaluation.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And we try to recruit basically on the G5 level. That's what we want. I mean, that's what we're trying to get. The guys that we're actively recruiting probably have 1 or 2 G5 offers, and some of those fall through. And some of them, once they get up to 6 or 7, I consider those the guys a 0, because I'm like, okay, they're not falling through the cracks. But that's what we're recruiting, that same talent level. And I think it shows, because I mean, for all the FCS, we're right now a feeder program, I think, for some of the, BCS programs, because we're taking them in and developing those kids. And there was one, we played 2 FBS teams a year. There was one FBS team we played a year ago. And the head coach, I saw an interview, and he was getting mad that somebody stole some players from him. And he's like, we take all this time and develop. And I'm like, we played them. And one of their linebackers was our starting linebacker a year ago. I'm like, yeah, it all trickles down. So
Yeah.
you did the
Everybody's
same.
facing the same thing. Yeah.
Everybody gets it. You
Yeah.
know,
The only people
there's
that have
always-
the only teams that really have like all of the cream of the crop below them are really like the SEC programs, some of the Big Ten programs. Other than that, I mean, you got going up and down, and it's
it's great, and hopefully they figure something out. But
So when
that's
you're recruiting, this is interesting. So when you're recruiting, you're actually, and this is so one of the things we tell the players is like, look, if you're grading as an FCS level player, like spend, let's say 50% of your time at the FCS level, but spend 30% of your time at the Division II level too, right? You got to get some offers under your belt, get the ball rolling, because Division II coaches are also recruiting FCS level players, trying to get them there. So get yourself some momentum, right? Don't just shoot for where you're at or above if you have no offers, even if you are grading as a really good player. So what's your thoughts on that, on where these athletes should be targeting if they're really getting truly evaluated by a college coach and an honest, non-biased evaluation of where they're at? How do you feel like they should spend their time based on where coaches?
well, I think it's the same thing, and everybody has different philosophies on every single thing, and it is kind of funny this year was, I think it kind of ties in. You tell me if I'm wrong. I think it kind of ties into camps a little bit, and I say that from we're trying to get these guys on campus. They tore up our practice field this year, so we didn't have a camp. It's first year we haven't had a camp,
Oh, no
but
prospect
when I
camp. Oh, okay.
yeah, so we had to go out to a lot, and so that was kind of funny when I was out recruiting in the spring. I was like, I'm going to be the only coach not to invite you to a camp, especially even the guys that we want. And I'm like, here are where the camps we're going to. But and I always suggest to the guys, and I might be a little, I don't know if it's too honest or too dumb or what, but I tell the high school kids is, and you don't, and you could have a different philosophy. You don't need to go to 6, 7, 8, 9 camps. It's ridiculous, and some of these kids are wearing themselves out. And I'm like, you need to pick, somewhere that, in my philosophy, somewhere that's actively recruiting you and giving you attention, and you want to go to their camp. I said, two, I probably wouldn't go to a camp that's already offered me because they can't offer you twice. So go somewhere else
That's a
where you're
good point.
trying to get it.
It's true.
And the third one is, I said I would, if like we're actively recruiting somebody, I would like to see them selfishly, like this year. There's 2 mega camps that are near us. Well, because I'm actively recruiting them, I would like to see them in camp because I'm going to see them at those camps. I said, so that's kind of, to me, is somewhere that's actively recruiting you, possibly a mega camp if coaches are actively recruiting you, and then go ahead and pick your dream camp. You said Penn State before. Go see James
One.
Franklin. One,
One.
and see where you go on that. And you're James doesn't need more money, but that's what it is. But you can get guys there. That's my philosophy. Is if we're recruiting a kid, I'd love to see him come to our camp. Especially we get next year we'll have a brand new field for him to come on. I'd like to see him on our campus so I could show him around our campus. But these kids that are going to, I talk to kids and they're going to 6 different camps and 3 mega camps, and I'm just like, how do you do that, James?
But they've never talked to one coach from any of the schools yet.
Yeah, that's the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah.
And
So
there's kids. It's scary at the end of a mega camp if you're a coach because you get bombarded. And the kids they're trying to make a personal contact. But there's kids I've never seen before or talked to before that come running up to me because they see the logo and say, Coach, I'm interested in Portland State. And I'm like, that's great. I don't know. There's 400 kids at this camp. I'm like, and it's nice to get that first contact,
yeah,
but I'm sitting there going, I didn't watch. I didn't. I mean,
yeah. I've
I'm
never seen
there
your
to see
film.
certain kids.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like this is like, okay. So I'm gonna break this down more. You correct it, move things around. Like, look, if you get a camp invite and you've never talked to the coach, use it as an opportunity to reach back out, see if that coach will watch your game film, see if that coach will get on a call. If they get on a call and they've watched your game film, now you have a real opportunity to say, hey, this camp might be worth it if they're actively recruiting you. If they're not actively recruiting you, they won't. We had one kid, he was like, yeah, well, I've never talked to the coach, never done anything. It's a 26-hour drive. I'm like, you're what? No. You're not going to do a 26-hour drive to a camp.
Holy cow.
Yeah. But anyways, no, camp invites are not all equal, right? A camp invite, a school is actively recruiting you. They've watched your game film. And so typically there's a validation, right? They want to height check you, character check you, coachability check you. And I'll ask this for you, like when you invite a kid to camp and you're recruiting them, what are you looking for? Is it one of those things where you're trying to like validate something about the potential kid or the player, like what, or the family? Like what are you, why do you
And
invite somebody to camp?
and I kind of go, and I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit off of what you said. Was when we get the list of this are the 400 kids, and it wears me out, but these are the 400 kids
Just
coming to
saying
this,
that
Mega camp.
400, yeah.
Yeah. So I go through, and I wish we had a large recruiting staff, but I'll go through and divide all those up and say, okay, quarterback coach, these are the kids from your area. So, we're going to have a staff meeting. Tell us which kids because I can't watch all 400 kids. So hopefully they have some that they have an idea from their area, or if not, I click on every video from a kid from my area. I do try to know ahead of time that I've watched the film. If they're not from my area, I probably didn't watch them. But if our database is good enough that we already have rankings on those kids, that makes it easy. We've already watched their film. Um, and I kind of go off of that. And you're talking about when we bring a kid, if we had camp this year and bringing a kid in, um, obviously we want those kids we want to offer to come on campus, but we also want those threes. And I think those threes are what I said senior year eval kids that I didn't see them move, well enough on the film. Is his change direction? Is what's missing? If I'm saying he's a three, there's some hesitation there.
You're right.
And those kids that come to our camp, they can answer that very quickly. If I take them through drills myself, and I'm like, oh, he has no problem changing direction. And as a defensive line coach, there's a lot of times that I'm like, okay, what's their philosophy? And that's what gets different high schools have different philosophies on the way to teach guys. And defensive line, I'll say, some are what we call stab and grab, where they're striking and sitting in a gap, and they're gap players, or their job's to keep the guy off the linebackers. They're just riding them down. Well, it's harder to evaluate than our philosophy. We're more an attack philosophy that I want to see those guys getting out and running. And so, it's kind of like I think he has it, but I don't know what he's being asked to do from his high school
Right.
coach.
How he,
Is he, you're playing, you're playing a zone read team, and they're sitting there, on the tackle's hip. Well, okay, I didn't see them run because that's what they're teaching them. They're teaching them to surf and be a hip player, which was fine. We do that as well. So, but I'm not seeing them getting out and running. Now, hopefully, once the ball's gone,
right.
those guys are turning and running, and that's one of the things. If we get into it, is highlight tapes versus game film. I like the game film because I can see a kid and I'll be like, that kid's lazy. Yeah, he had 8 clips on there, and I got to see those great 8 clips. But the other 42, he's just
Open
he didn't
around.
have a chance to make the play, so he's just watching. And I'm like, nah, I don't need guys to watch. I don't. That's what I used to. And I will name drop, but Jared Allen, when I coached him, and fortunately enough, I'll be at his Hall of Fame induction here in August.
Awesome, man.
But yeah, that'll be fun, and it was an honor to be invited by him to go to that. But he was a kid, and I've had several of them. I always say to even in our camps is I'm not a strength coach. I'm not a hustle coach. I don't want to spend my time yelling to you to turn and run or bust, go to the ball. I said, you are cheating yourself. Every time I'm doing that, I'm not telling you where you missed on your hand placement. I'm not telling you where your step was poor. I'm not telling you how to get better as a pass rusher, what your counter move should have been, because I'm coaching you how to run. And that's not what
Right.
I want to do. I want to coach you how to be the best defensive lineman, not how to sprint. That's
Right.
that's ridiculous to me. And I'm like, the kids that I'm teaching how to sprint, I'll move those other kids, in front of them that want to do the things the right way.
Yeah. So it's interesting. How do you go about, walk me through your narrowing process? You got 400 guys, right? Like, how do you only can offer so many guys, right? Like, how do you go about, I mean, obviously, like you said, even right, like you said right there, like bringing them to camp, that, like is it the move of direction? Is it his footwork? Is it his coachability? But like outside of that, how do you keep narrowing it down? You know,
I, I mean, I think it is. It's some will narrow themselves down because they're going to go to, G5s or, or whatever that narrows the list down. I think a lot of recruiting in a lot of senses is taking guys off the list. What's the reason we're taking them off the list? And I think that's part of it. And relationships is one thing that puts them on the list, but it's like academics. Well, that's going to take guys off the list. And I mentioned prior, we're big on we have the scholarships. It doesn't really matter, but when money's money, and you kind of look at money. And for us, we're a WUI school, so it's the Western states. We can bring a kid in, and I kind of say the same thing: is that we bring a kid in, and he's over a 3.2. If I have a kid that's a 3.2 GPA out of high school, and I have a kid that's below that, and there's everything's equal, and they live in one of these states, I can basically get him almost in-state tuition off my budget. The kid that actually qualifies at a 3.2. So if all things are equal, and one kid's a 2.2 GPA and the other kid's a 3.2 GPA, I'm taking the 3.2. If all's equal, it's cost me. I can get two of those kids.
Yeah.
And so if they're out of state, it makes once again that narrows our list down. As I'm going, all things equal, this
That's
kid's
huge.
a WUI. He's going to cost us half as much. I'm going to go with that kid. So, academics is in our team GPA was coincidental. It was a 3.21 at the end of last quarter.
That's
So,
awesome.
we have solid academics, and that's I think, and part of it is that's kind of when we recruit, we're looking for those kids that have the academics, the academic standard to be able to make it here and succeed.
And not only like the scholarship money too, but obviously when I was at Ole Miss, we had a couple, there was 2 5-star receivers that were there. One of them unfortunately never even made it because he couldn't stop smoking weed. But unfortunately, great kid, but anyway, unreal player, crazy talent. But anyways, um, it's not just the scholarship money too, but also like as a coach, I watched my receivers coach, who I still have a great relationship with to this day, spend 60% of his time making sure kids were going to their tutors, going to class, doing all this stuff. And I'm like, that kid didn't have a great GPA in high school. So for you as a coach, it's like, I got this kid 3.2, this kid's got a 2.2. Who am I going to be babysitting? Who are we going to now have
Oh,
to
no doubt.
babysit? Go ahead, sorry.
And that's 100%. It kind of goes back to, and I love him to death, but what Jared was. There was one point they were going to get rid of him because he was having some issues with academics and
Oh,
off the
really?
field.
Okay.
I mean, he knows and there was a point where in the transfer portal world, he probably would have left and went somewhere else because he was that good. And the head coach, told me, if you want him, you got to make sure he's on. So the same thing. I spent a lot of time, going, making sure that he was in class. He was up. He was, a lot of my time. But I had an old coach tell me a long time ago, I will tolerate you till I can replace you. And he was irreplaceable. So I spent a lot of time, making sure he was doing what he was supposed to be doing. But a lot of these kids, I don't need to tolerate much because you're so easily replaced. You're not that BCS talent that's sitting on an FCS school. You're not a Power Five guy sitting in my room that I can't replace. All of them are the same thing. It's FCS. I mean, so you don't have to spend all, like you were saying, that exorbitant amount of time making sure this kid's going to class, making sure this kid's going where he has to be. But back in the day when there wasn't the transfer portal, oh, you bet I was showing up and making sure he was supposed to be where he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So
And that's also because it's Jared Allen, right? Like,
yeah,
what
oh
I mean?
yeah.
Like
He,
the odds
he
of
asked
like,
me,
go ahead.
he saw me one day showing up to his class. He goes, Coach, you already have your degree, don't you? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, why are you going to all my classes? I said, because I want to make sure you get yours. So,
So for the program that you're a part of and you're building, what would you like to share with audience members, parents, athletes that are watching this who are at that FCS maybe even G5 level that are like, hey, Portland State might be a school I'm interested in. What could you share with them about the program and what you're building over down there, or not down there, up there over in Portland?
Up there, up and over. I think the biggest thing, and it's everywhere, and it's everywhere I've been, is it's, and I keep going back to that relationship thing. It's got to be a fit between, my school here is different than the last school I was at. It's different than the other school. It's different than Michigan. It's got to be a fit for that player. And it's got to be a fit for our wants and needs also as a coaching staff. And I say the best thing that Portland State has, and our head coach is phenomenal. It's the people, and it starts with him. And there's no other head coach in our conference that is like him. And he is a player's coach. He is through and through, and he thinks outside the box. And I mean, he is an offensive genius, and that to me is what puts us above other teams in our program, is coming from the top down. And the way he runs the program and the way he has everything, Bruce Barnum. And I don't know if you heard on the one, we had a game playing a Division II team, and it made national news. Was he was on ESPN radio, and they asked him, what are you doing to get people to the game? And he said, if you come to our game this week, I'll buy beer for everyone that comes to the game.
Did he really?
And he was the first one that did that.
Dang.
And they were like, you'll buy them a beer? He's like, no, I will buy them beer during the entire
How many
game if
people
they
showed
show
up?
And so it went national. Now some other coaches are trying to mimic it. Those are the kinds of, he thinks outside the box, and it actually came out of his. He paid for it.
How many
And I think
seats? How many tickets were there?
I would have to look it up. There's tweets about it, and Coors Light even tweeted, because they showed the receipt, and Coors Light was the number one beer, and so they were like, Bruce Barnum, we're putting you in the Coors Light Hall of Fame because he bought more beers than anybody else has ever.
How many
bought
was
at
it?
a
Do you
single
remember how
time.
much it was, or how many?
I
You don't
don't.
remember? Okay.
It was a couple of years ago. I'd have to look it back.
That's
but
crazy.
he's the coach that did something like that. And of course, when we got up, he's like, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, because he wanted to get that game over as quickly as possible, because he knew
Did not have to keep paying for beer.
Yeah, because he didn't want to pay
Okay,
for
so
any
here it
more,
is. I just Googled it. I had to look. 1,270 Coors Lights.
There you go. Yeah.
Wow. And you guys won.
Yeah, and we won. Oh yeah, well we couldn't get, it was one of those deals. We were playing a team that we kind of like when we played, Oregon. They had a pretty good feeling they were going to beat us, and
Fair.
so that was kind of our deal as well.
It was 14,500 beers. Or excuse me,
Yeah.
$14,500.
There you go. So
Dang. That's freaking awesome, man. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool, man. I know we're at the very tail end here. Is there anything that you want to share, guidance, ideas, thoughts for parents, players that just from all your experience, you're like, hey, I just wish parents and players knew this, man. It would just make my life easier. It would make their life easier. What would that be?
Well, I was going to say the first thing, because this question always comes up, and and I'll go into the recruiting part of it first. But when a coach comes in to talk to a recruiter, a guy that we're serious, and it's so redundant. It's, hey, and this is where coaches get on kind of the same thing. Hey, Richie, what do you want to major in? And as soon as you say it, they'll say, our university has the best business college, that whatever you put in there. And I tell kids, I'm not a professor, and the same thing. I'm not a strength coach. I'm not a professor. Hey, do your research. And now, if you ask me, I know Portland State's business college is phenomenal. It's worldwide known, but you can't take that from me. I'm trying to sell our university. You need to do your own homework on these schools. You need to go and see, is it true? that the business college is one of the top business colleges. Whatever major you want. And that's what I kind of try to answer with guys. And they're like, do you have this major? I know generally what our majors are, but I don't have the rundown in front. I will look it up. I'll look anything up, but I'm not going to give you a wrong answer and say that we have this, or we're going to try to create this major so it goes to what you want to do. And it's really not what you wanted to do. And you're not going to be happy and you're going to want to leave. So I doing your own homework. Just you mentioned earlier, just what's the perspective of wanting to come to Portland State? We're an urban, campus. We're in the, the Big Sky Conference. What are those things we can sell all day? And like I said, the people here is what sells our place. I could sell Portland State, but I don't want to have to sell Portland State. It's got to be that mutual. It's got to be you want to come to Portland State because we have what you need, and we got to need what you as a player. And I think guys don't do their homework. They just, this school looks great, and they're not happy because they go somewhere, just I don't know some of the reasons, but they go to different places.
Yeah, man, it's a really good point. It kind of, maybe it's a vanity thing. Like, how many offers can I get? They don't really even care. It's, like, I think one thing we talked about earlier on, which is like, first off, make sure you're evaluating, you're targeting the right schools. That's number one. Number two is when you reach out to then once you know your level, then reach out to schools at the right level that you may be interested. Let's look at what are you interested in academically? What are you interested in geography? What are you interested in team culture? Are you interested in a big city or a small town? Are you interested? This is something like we have a sheet where we break down all the different things. You fill it out, and then it kind of says, okay, let's guide and look at some of the schools that could be a good fit. Research them. Then when you're reaching out to these coaches, let them know why you're interested specifically in that program, not a mass email. And then when you get there, express that to the coach, which is basically what you're saying here. If a kid's going to come to me, have the GPA, make sure you could play at this level, and then tell me why you want to be here. No,
that's simple. Yeah. And I think going off and I'll hit 2 points, Richie. One, I coached at Division II level. We would have kids, come in and they just wanted to hear the word scholarship, and the same thing, they wanted to be on scholarship. And then when I've been at other schools that were actually scholarship schools or state schools, I would look at it and say, okay, so what do they give? If I'm having a kid and I want him to walk on per se, we get so many kids to walk on, and I'll say, hey, I think, there's a chance you get here and you got an opportunity to work into it and eventually maybe get a scholarship. And they're like, well, such and such is offering me, a scholarship, $4,000. I'm like, well, it costs $40,000 to go to school there. Minus four, you're at 36. It costs 28 to come here. I'm like, and it goes to what you're saying. What's important to you? Is it just that fact of getting a scholarship, or is it just that fact of, you got to rank those things. I tell kids, even kids we're recruiting have multiple offers. So I tell them the same thing. Put all your schools, your top 3 schools or whatever, down on the side. And then what's important to you? Is it the biggest stadium? Is it playing, against BCS opponents? Is it the coaching staff? Is it the major? And then rank those schools 1 to 3 on each one. And, by the time you get to the end of the sheet, somebody has a better number than somebody else to kind of help you, through the process. Because if you just say, if you're saying, I want to be at the largest school I can go to, well, then it's easy. You go into the largest school. But if these things are important to you, well, let's figure out who fills those parameters. And if it's, and fortunately, Portland State fills it for a ton of people. And we've been blessed in that sense of getting, some really good players, to come in here and go through the system. But sometimes it's not a fit. If you want to go to a country school, we're not. I'm sorry. We've got an hour away. An hour away, you can be, at Mount Hood, climbing Mount Hood. But if it's just a day to day, we're a city environment. Our campus is beautiful because we got what we call the park blocks, and it runs through the middle of campus, and it's like Central Park, so it gives you that feel of, being out in the country. But, realistically, you walk across here, you walk across a crosswalk, on the other side. So we kind of, we have a little bit of everything, but we're not for every single person.
Right.
And that's kind of the deal. And I think every school's like that. I think
Yeah.
everybody has, it's got to be the fit.
It's got to be the fit. Yeah. And the fact that you're transparent and out open about it for listeners, like, hey, this is the coach that's, he's transparent and open, not just trying to sell you on a program,
Yeah.
which is also something that's, in my opinion, pretty valuable. So, my last question for you here, and then we're going to roll is,
Okay.
do you guys do NIL at your program? Because I've seen, was it Sacramento State that just pulled this like unreal 4-star player right out of Ole Miss. I follow Ole Miss.
Yeah. And they just, and I mean, I don't know what's going on there.
You
They're
saw that,
trying.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I saw that.
What?
And they're getting out of our conference. They're trying to move up, and I think, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to miss it.
They got
They're
a
trying to
donor.
move up,
They got a donor.
basically.
They're-
And so they're getting, money into the system, which is awesome for them. Yeah, we're not, we don't have, I mean, we're a Nike school, which is awesome.
yeah, that's big.
Our kids, I don't think they have very many wants or needs. And I think our head coach as well has said things on, he wants to take care of everybody. And so I think, especially at our level, if we start, and I would like to have I would love to have NIL money, to give everybody, and buy top players. I would, but also that I think it creates a division in some locker rooms, especially when you don't have enough of it to take care of a ton of players.
Yeah.
And if we have one guy that's somebody mentioned that before, like if we would have had it back when you and I played. If you have somebody that's you sitting over there going, he's making $50,000 and I'm making 20 and I'm starting and he's behind me, well,
Problem.
it starts creating some division. And in my opinion, my humble opinion, like I said, some people are going to look at me and say you don't have knowledge on this, and I don't, because I'm not dealing with it every day. But just my outside 1,000-yard view is that's messed up. So I'd be pissed off if I was playing and the guys behind me is making more money than me. It's just human nature. I'm like, wait a second. You start dividing that locker room a little bit. But I'm saying 50,000 because I might have only been worth $50,000. The guy behind me might have been worth $200,000. I don't know. I don't know how they decide those numbers. So
Cool. Awesome. Well, Coach, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know a lot of the parents and players listening to this got a lot out of it, man. And I'm excited for you and the Portland State this year. I'm going to keep my eye on them and wish you nothing but success. And I hope to have you on next summer.
I'd love it. This was fun, Richie. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Scholarship Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And for more free resources, or if you're interested in working with us, visit gonextplay.com. Until next time.